Okay. In the last session, we completed required setups for foreign currency invoice and payment. Here, this is not a setup, just we have to review now. So we'll create the invoice in the foreign currency and we'll process the payment in the foreign currency. So let's create invoice. Create invoice. It's a new environment. The default BU is not set. It's fine. Select supplier. Enter invoice number and select foreign currency. We want to create invoice in INR, 10,000 rupees. Enter line information. And validate the invoice. If you go to show more, under accounting tab, we can see the conversion information by following which rate type, with which date, what rate system is using. That information we can see. So let's create accounting for this invoice. Okay, accounted. Very standard accounting. There is no change in the accounting. We'll process the payment for the same invoice. Go to create payment task. Select RBU. Select supplier. Select bank account. When you select bank account, now the field payment currency is editable. Reason, bank account level, we enable multi-currency account. Now you can select in which currency you want to process the payment. We want to process the payment in INR currency. Select our payment process profile. Select payment document. Check. Now, here we selected payment currency as INR. Now, if you click on plus icon, the invoices which are available payment currency as a INR, those invoices system will filter. Now we have only one invoice where we can pay in INR currency. Select the same invoice, say apply, say OK. Now, here if you go to advanced tab, we are making the payment. Which rate type system is going to use? What is the conversion rate? 1 rupee is equal to how many dollars? 0.0120. And how many dollars we are going to pay? Here you can see. So $120.48. So the details you can see related to conversion. Here is a conversion section. You can see the details under that. Say save and close. The payment will be recorded once you click on save and close. Payment is recorded. This is the document number. You may copy and go to manage payments. Search with the document number. Open the document. Create accounting. Postal ledger. View accounting. Now we created invoice. Okay, we created invoice today and we are making the payment also today. There is no difference in the payment. So to pay $10,000, we are using $120. To pay 10,000 rupees, we are using $120. So that's how system is reporting. If any variance in between invoice creation date and payment creation date, variance in the sense currency fluctuation, then it will report realized gain or loss accounts. Okay, realized gain or loss accounts. So while you are practicing, you can just take invoice creation date as one day, payment creation date as a different day. Make sure rates are different. Rates are different. Maybe you can create invoice with yesterday date. You set rate as 80. You set rate for today as 81 or 82 and make the payment with the today date. Two different dates, two different rates. To test, you'll be able to see system will take based on whether that will turn into gain or loss. Accordingly, it will derive the accounts. So we have seen from where system will take the accounts. In the common options, realized gain and loss accounts are mandatory. So those accounts system will derive. Even you can set the accounts in bank account level. The accounts realized gain, exchange rate, gain, loss accounts, you can set it bank account, but not mandatory. If you set a bank account, it will take from bank account. Go to manage bank accounts. We give a name as HSBC. Go to BU access. Here we have foreign exchange gain, foreign exchange loss. Okay. In case of foreign currency, when you record the transactions, you may set at bank account level or else you can maintain at BU level itself. So that's how you can create invoice in foreign currency and make the payment. When you practice, create invoice with one date, payment with a different date, and for these two dates, maintain the two different rates and test. You can see system will derive that relevant account based on gain or loss. The next topic is cross currency payments. Okay, cross currency payments. Cross currency payments. So when you talk about setups for cross currency payments, the setups are same. The same setups will support. Okay, same setups. The realized gain or loss, what we discussed, that is not a setup, just we reviewed the information. Same setups. Now what we will do is we'll create invoice in one currency and we'll process the payment in the different currency. Say invoice will create in USD and we'll process the payment in INR. So invoice and payment currency is not going to be same. Invoice currency, payment currency is different from invoice currency. Payment currency is different from invoice currency that we call as cross currency payments. So setups remain same. Okay, setups remain same. But in terms of accounting for cross currency payments, so we have to provide one rounding account. Okay, we have to provide one cross currency account at ledger options. Go to ledger options. Specify ledger options. Select our ledger. Select our ledger. Okay. So make sure these accounts are available. These are system is deriving from the rapid implementation sheet. Okay. So make sure these accounts are available. If any rounding is required, just after decimals and all, these accounts can take care. It's recommended that we have to set these accounts. Now, create invoice in USD and payment in INR. So create invoice. So quickly, we'll go and set the profile option. Okay, we have set profile option. Now it is reflecting. So select supplier, Amex Corporation. Invoice number, I'm giving 2222. Yes, we want to record the invoice in USD. $10,000. Go to lines. Enter line amount. Validate the invoice. Now, I validated this invoice. Now I am planning to make the payment in INR. It is not possible. Okay, that means we should plan to make the payment while creating the invoice itself in which currency. Now see, I just created invoice and I validated this invoice. Now if I take the decision, I want to make the payment for this invoice in INR, it is not possible. Now if you go to show more, you see the same invoice currency system defaulted as a payment currency, and now the field is not editable because we validated. So whenever you create invoice, if you want to process the payment for that invoice in the different currency, before validation itself, you have to set payment currency. By default, system takes invoice currency as a payment currency. Now this invoice we cannot pay in INR. Here it is selected as a USD only. Now we have to create separate invoice if you want to process the payment in the different currency. So this point is very important. After creating invoice, after validation, if you take the decision to pay in the different currency, not possible. So while creating invoice itself, you have to set which is going to pay, which is going to be the payment currency, then you will be able to process. Let's create one more invoice, Amex Corporation, 3333. $10,000. Enter line information. $10,000. Now go to show more. Set payment currency as INR. So payment currency is INR. Now submit invoice for validation. Proceed. Again, you have to hit validate. Yes, it has a lines. It is not able to recognize. What you can do is just show the line to system. Click on line, validate. It's not recognizing. Just hit the line, just click on the line. Say validate. So just delete this line and create again. It's not recognizing. 10,000. Save it. Submit for validation. Okay, it's a kind of glitch. It is not able to recognize. Now we have invoice. It says save and close. Go to payment workbench. Create payment. Directly you can use create payment task. Our supplier is Amex Corporation. Select the supplier. Select bank account details. Now from the at bank account level, we have a default currency as a USD. While creating the bank account, we selected currency as a USD. Later we enable multi-currency account. Now we are going to make the payment in which currency? Select the same. We are going to pay in INR. Select payment process profile in the payment document. Now click on plus icon to select which invoices we can pay or we need to pay in INR. So this invoice currency is USD, but for this invoice payment currency is INR. Say okay. So you can see here the complete information. It's $10,000. Okay, the invoice amount, and that is it converted into rupees. Converted rupees 8,30,000. Since we are using the rate as 83. So whatever we discussed here, the rate will reflect. So save and close. Done. So that's all about foreign currency invoice and payment, cross currency payments. Cross currency means create invoice in one currency, process payment in the different currency. So cross currency payment, foreign currency invoice and payment. This pay group also already we discussed and we're done with that. Now we'll see the concept called as withholding tax invoice. So already we discussed what does it mean by withholding tax. invoice. When you are making the payment to any supplier, if supplier is not registered supplier is not registered with the government, if you pay the tax amount to that supplier may not pay the tax amount to government. Since the supplier is not registered entity to do the business, in such kind of scenarios, whatever the tax amount we are liable to pay to the supplier, that we won't pay to the supplier, we'll pay to the government. That means we hold the tax amount and will pay to the government. That we have to set up in the system. For which supplier this case is applicable. That we have to set up in the system so that we'll be able to hold the tax amount when we create the invoice. So the tax amount will pay to the tax authority and remaining amount will pay to the supplier. Okay, this case we can take as unregistered suppliers. Say, take simple example, you are paying the rent. So to whom you pay the rent, say they are not registered entities. You take example even kind of TDS. When we work for any company as an employee, our employer will hold the tax. Employees are not registered entities, just they are employees. So if you pay as a company, if you pay the tax amount also to employee by believing, there is no guarantee employee will pay to government. That is the reason instruction would be there from government to employers saying that if you are paying salaries to the employee, hold the tax amount. Hold the tax amount and send that amount to what you are holding to the government. That's how the instruction would be. So later returns, etc., you can claim, but there will be concept called as holding the tax amount by organization. So the same concept we are calling as a withholding tax. So here what we are going to do is we'll create invoice with our supplier. Our supplier is falling under withholding tax calculation where our supplier is not a registered company, then system will calculate the withholding tax and it will hold the tax amount, will pay the remaining amount to our supplier. We'll just take a simple example here. Say, create invoice with Amex Corporation. Okay, Amex Corporation. So here we are going to create invoice, say with $10,000. And whenever you create invoice, if withholding tax is applicable, take example, Amex Corporation is not a registered entity. Take that example. If not registered entity, when you create invoice, what system will do is, if tax amount is 10,000, it will reduce 1,000. Now only 9,000 will pay to the standard supplier. So now whom you are paying the remaining amount apart from tax, that supplier we call a standard supplier. Our regular supplier we call a standard supplier. Now the amount what you are holding, okay, the amount what you are holding, this amount we have to pay to tax authority. So whenever you create and validate the invoice, if tax is applicable, system creates withholding tax invoice with this amount. So when you submit invoice for validation, if withholding tax is applicable for that invoice, it will hold the tax amount. With the tax amount, system creates withholding tax invoice. Say, system creates withholding tax invoice. I'm taking the short. So withholding tax invoice. So system creates withholding tax invoice with tax authority name. Okay, with the tax authority name, it's nothing but we call as tax authority supplier. We call as tax authority supplier. Yes, we have to create tax authority in our system as a supplier. So reality, tax authority is not a supplier for us, but if you want to make the payment, any party you have to create in the system as a supplier. So system creates withholding tax invoice with the tax authority name. The invoice amount would be $1,000. The amount would be whatever the amount we are holding from the standard supplier invoice, that amount with the same amount system will create the invoice. Now this $1,000 we will pay to tax authority as per the payment terms. So you may process the payment to your supplier immediately, but tax authority, so whatever the terms are applicable, maybe you have to pay every 1 month or every quarter, depending on the country and all, you can process the payment. Say, pay $1,000 to tax authority. Pay $1,000 to tax authority. So that's how it is. So this is the process we are going to see. To implement this solution in the system, we need to complete few setups. We need to complete few setups. So first we need tax authority in the system as a supplier. So first we will create tax authority as a supplier. Say create tax authority as supplier, or you can call as withholding tax authority as a supplier. Create withholding tax authority as a supplier. Any tax authority, just here we are talking about withholding, accordingly we call as a withholding tax authority or a tax authority. Then, so there is separate setup, like we have seen invoice options and the payment options. In the same way, withholding tax related options also available. There we have to enable the withholding tax. Okay. So take the point as set up withholding tax options. And we have to create tax also, that we call as a tax code. So create withholding tax codes. We have to specify, so what is the tax name and how much percentage of tax is applicable, that we define in the system with the concept called as withholding tax codes. And before that, let's create payables calendar. It is not mandatory. Let's create so that we can discuss. Create payables calendar. Okay, create payables calendar for withholding tax purpose. And create withholding tax codes. And we have to group the tax codes. You may have one code, but still, as per system design, you have to group. So you have to create the withholding tax group. Create withholding tax group. The same withholding tax group you can call as classification. You can call as withholding classification. Withholding tax classification are called as a group. As per system, in few setups they are giving as group, in few setups they are giving as a task name as a classification. You try to understand both are same. Now, finally, the withholding tax group we need to assign to supplier. So for which supplier withholding tax is applicable, to that supplier, we need to assign the group what you create by grouping one or multiple codes. Say assign withholding tax group to supplier. So when you say assign to supplier, this you have to set up a profile on the site. Okay. So first we have to set profile, then only system will allow us to set a site. So these are the setups which we have to complete so that we'll be able to implement withholding tax solution the system. So we'll see how to create the withholding tax authority as a supplier. We know how to create the supplier, same story. Only the difference is one field. One field would be different compared to how we create supplier as a normal standard supplier and how we create tax authority supplier definition. And here notice the terminology we are using supplier as a standard supplier. Since we have tax authority also as a supplier. Since we have one more supplier called as a tax authority, our regular supplier we are calling as a standard supplier. This is the terminology we use in this concept. Standard supplier means from which supplier we get invoice. So tax authority, even not supplier, we are going to make the payment to the tax authority, whatever we deducted from our standard supplier, the tax amount we need to pay. That is the reason we are calling as a tax authority supplier. Tax authority is not a supplier. To make the payment, we are calling as a tax authority as a supplier. So we'll create the tax authority supplier. So go to supplier creation page, procurement, suppliers. Create supplier. And they will give the name as we'll just take the prefix as a ERP tree for identification purpose. ERP tree US withholding tax authority. Okay, just you can give the prefix for identification. Yes, ideally we have to create name like US withholding tax authority. That name might be exist within this environment. So that is the reason I am taking as a prefix as ERP tree so that we can differentiate. Now select relationship as a spend authorized, organization type as a corporation. So create. So based on these inputs, system will create profile for this supplier. Okay, created. Now go to addresses, create address. I'm just providing some random text. Select country. The tax authority belongs to which country? Select that country. And you may pick any one of the postal code and set the purpose. We never place any orders, purchase orders. Simply you can select remit to only. Enable remit to, say save and close. Create site based on this address. For creating the address, create site against this address. Go to sites. Click on plus icon. Select address and provide the site name. Site name we are giving as withholding tax. The same from address, remit2 is defaulting as a pay. Remit2 is defaulting as a pay. Now save it and go to invoicing tab. So here you may set invoice currency and the payment currency. Again, you have to see like whether you have a default set in invoice options or not. And set specific method as a default. Assign site to BU. Go to site assignments. Click on auto create assignments. This site will be assigned to the BU for which BU's ERP tree is acting as a procurement agent. So click on auto create assignments, and that's how it is. Okay, here we are not setting any distribution set, etc., because we are not going to create an invoice. System is going to create invoice based on withholding tax amount. So save and close. Now, how this supplier is different from our standard supplier? Apart from name, there is no difference. But you have to make the difference. Then only system will understand. So this supplier will be available when you do withholding tax related setups. Otherwise, this supplier will not be visible just because you given the name as withholding tax authority. So here is the field, the supplier type. Here is the field called as supplier type. Here select supplier type as a tax authority. Supplier type you have to select as tax authority. So here is the type called as tax authority. It is not just field value. There is a functionality behind it. Oracle written the programming. For any supplier, the type is selected as a tax authority. This supplier should be visible in tax codes definition page. That's how they written the programming. So select supplier type as a tax authority, then only you can use this supplier in tax configuration. So say save and close. Okay. Now we need to set withholding tax options. So for which business unit, within which BU, you want to calculate the withholding tax, that we have to specify. So go to FSM by clicking on setup and maintenance. Now search for withholding tax options. Here is a task. The task name is manage tax reporting and withholding tax options. The task name is manage tax reporting and withholding tax options. Just click on the task. Again, click on the same task, and here notice the scope selection is pointing or BU or different BU. Check once. Click on the same task. Now for our BU, ERP tree, financial services INC, we are going to set withholding tax applicability. So event class. So the invoice what you create. Okay, standard invoice, debit memo, credit memo, prepayment. Each type of invoice, whatever you create, that we call as event class as per SLA. As per SLA, subledger accounting, those we call as event classes. Now, for which event class, system should calculate the withholding tax, that you have to select. Say for standard invoice, even you can calculate tax for prepayment invoice also. So you may give advance to somebody, but that supplier may be not registered entity. You can hold the tax portion from that amount and you can pay to the government. So here event class we are selecting as a standard invoice. By default, system is enabling these checkboxes. So apply withholding, process transaction tax, allow manual withholding. If you enable the checkbox, even you can create, okay, even you can create manual withholding tax invoice also. And when system should calculate the withholding tax, calculation point is invoice. If you want to calculate withholding tax at the time of payment, that is also possible. Okay, that is also possible. So 99% we calculate the withholding tax at the time of invoice. In very few countries, okay, the government allows to calculate the tax at the time of payment. Whenever you create invoice, you have to calculate the withholding tax. You no need to wait till the payment. So 99% in most of the countries, so the tax you can calculate, the withholding tax need to be calculated invoice creation. So I think in Italy, you can calculate withholding tax at the time of payment. That the government allows, you no need to calculate withholding tax when you are really paying. So that is a time like you have to calculate and you have to report that amount to government. So ideally, it would be invoice creation time only. But try to understand the calculation points we have it two: invoice creation time or payment creation time. And okay, system will calculate the withholding tax. Then when system should create the withholding tax invoice? Invoice creation time or payment. Ideally, whatever you set calculation points, same time you create the withholding tax invoice. So mostly it would be invoice only two cases. And set start date. This setup should be effective from which date. So that's how you can give the specifications. Primarily, you have to set for which event. Again, calculation point. Remember, okay, when system will calculate the withholding tax and when system creates the withholding tax invoice, that totally depends on what you are setting at withholding tax options. Based on what we set in the withholding tax options, accordingly system can calculate the withholding tax as well as with the tax amount, it can create the withholding tax invoice. So save and close. Now create payables calendar. It is not mandatory, but if you want to use, you can use. So let's create payables calendar for withholding tax purpose. Go to payables calendars. The task name is manage payables calendars. Click on plus icon. So for our identification purpose, so ERP withholding tax, or else reality you can give name like withholding tax. That's enough. This is a practice environment. We want to differentiate our setups. So you can give as ERP tree withholding tax. And this is not for payment terms purpose. Already we have seen how we can use payables calendar in the payment terms. Now this is not for payment terms. This is for withholding tax purpose. In that case, you can select as a general purpose. Even for recurring invoice also, you have to create the payables calendar with a general purpose. In case of recurring invoice, payables calendar is mandatory. In case of withholding tax, the payables calendar is optional. Yes, frequency we need monthly. Specify the start date. So you want to create from Jan 1st. Click on generate periods. Created. So save and close. Done. Now let's create withholding tax codes. Okay, what is the tax name? Yes, withholding. We have to include the rate. And if you calculate the tax to whom to pay, the tax authority information, and again that is belongs to which region or zone or jurisdiction, what you call that, we have to specify. Let's see that. Here search for tax codes. Okay. Here is a task called as manage tax codes. If you look at this task, they are not writing the name as withholding tax codes. When you look at the tax related task, the name is manage tax codes. Just click on manage tax codes. Okay, click on manage tax codes. Now click on create plus icon. So when you click on create plus icon, there you can see the title as create with withholding tax codes. Okay, before that, you see everywhere just tax code. Even in this page also same task name. So they are not giving the name exactly as a withholding tax codes, but you have to understand this point. Even they are not giving withholding tax codes, those are withholding tax codes purpose only, they given the task. So task name is manage tax codes. Click on plus icon. Now select business unit. Here if you notice the tax codes we are creating at BU level. Whatever the code we are creating that stands at BU level. Now select our business unit. And select the country. Okay, the tax what you are going to create that is applicable in which country. Select. So United States. And the tax region code. Within the US, exactly in which regime the tax is applicable. The zone. Okay, the kind of jurisdiction and area that you have to specify. So create tax regime code. Tax regime code. Click on drop down. Click on create action. It is a create hyperlink. Click on create. Now give the name as ERP3 US tax regime. The same code you can take as a name. Take today date as a start date. Say save and close. It's all about just labeling. Okay, we are not doing anything, just we are labeling, we are giving name. Now you have to create the tax. So real code. Okay. Now click on drop down and click on create. Okay, click on create. So give the name, say withholding tax at the percentage of say 15%. Just it's a name only. System cannot identify this 15%. For our understanding purpose, I'm giving the name within the name itself, percentage also. So start date from today and select tax liability account. Withholding tax liability account we have to select here. So this account system will use when tax is calculated. When withholding tax is calculated, that we are liable to pay to tax authority. So that account we have to select. You just search and select code combination with 1,000 company and change only account. Search for the account description which contains withholding. Okay, the name they given as automatic. Yes, it is going to be calculated and created automatically. Okay, so it can be withholding tax or automatic manual, doesn't matter. Take withholding tax account. Say okay. Now, so we have to select tax authority. If you create tax, if you calculate the tax by using this tax code, the real percentage will give after some time. So if you calculate this tax, the tax should be paid to remit to which is supplier. So tax authority supplier. Now, while creating the tax authority as a supplier, we selected supplier type as a tax authority. Because of that reason, that supplier will display in this field. Okay, if you don't set tax authority as a the supplier type as a tax authority, so in this field, the tax authority supplier will not appear. So click on drop down. See here we have ERP US Withholding Tax Authority. We don't find our standard supplier. Our standard supplier type is not tax authority. So hope you can connect to the dot why we set to supplier type as a tax authority. Okay, if you set, then only here you will be able to map the tax authority to this tax code definition, so that whenever system will calculate this tax, with the tax amount, system will create invoice with this tax authority. So we are mapping between the tax code and the tax authority, which code for which authority. That's it. Select site for the authority. Say save and close. Say save and close. See, just focus on what we are discussing. Okay. Mostly what is not important when you are learning as per general requirement, those I am not touching. You don't worry about if you see here and there some fields. Okay. Now, the same code, same tax you can take as a code. Okay. The tax rate type as percentage we are going to give. And here is one checkbox. Create tax classification code. If I enable the checkbox, this code itself system will create as a one group. Okay, here we have a next setup called as withholding tax group or classification. So automatically system will create code as a group or you can call as classification. So don't enable it. Now we are learning. We will create so that we can understand. And here is the section threshold controls. Okay, threshold controls. If you click on this plus icon, it will ask you to select withholding tax calendar. Then you can set the minimum value, maximum value. It means period based. General, ideally we don't use it. Here threshold based controls, if you want to set for tax calculations, you can use it. Okay, ideally not required. Directly we'll set the rate specification for the withholding tax code. What we given here just for our, as I just understanding purpose, we given 15. So the same you can give here. That is our plan. 15% tax we want to calculate and give effective start date. So that's all. These are the specifications we have to give. So this threshold controls not required. Just if you are using thresholds like based on the kind of the slab and all, if you want to calculate the tax, you can use it. Ideally not required. It would be straightforward. Now say save and close. Click on done. The next task is create withholding tax group. you can call it as a classification. Both are same. But here the name they are giving as a classifications. The task name is manage withholding tax classifications. Click on this task. Click on plus icon. So I'm giving the name as ERP tree withholding tax group. Click on plus icon. Select our business unit. The BU name is financial services. Select tax rate code. Okay, specify this. So if you want to calculate tax on tax and all, you can go with the tax compounding details. Like you can select BU compounding tax, means tax on tax. On this tax, if you want to calculate the tax, another tax, then you can go with that. So specify start date. And here clearly it is showing tax status code standard, what name we given, that is belongs to which tax regime. You can see the details. If you have multiple taxes, you can group here. Click on plus and add one more tax. So even we have one tax, still we have to create the classification, nothing but group. The reason, supplier level you can assign only withholding tax group. Classification and group both are same. Both are same. Only you can assign withholding tax group at supplier level, not directly tax code. That is the reason. This tax code directly you cannot assign to supplier, that you have to include in the group. The only group you can assign at supplier level. That is the reason even we have one code also, we are creating group. Say save and close. Click on done. Now we need to assign the group to supplier. Go to our supplier, standard supplier, not to withholding tax authority supplier. We have to go to our standard supplier. Here suppliers we are classifying as a standard and withholding tax authority suppliers. Go to standard supplier. It means for how many suppliers withholding tax is applicable. For all the suppliers we have to assign this withholding tax group. For how many suppliers withholding tax is applicable, for all the suppliers we have to assign. Now under profile, if you scroll little down, you see one tab called as income tax. Go to income tax tab. Under income tax tab, there is one checkbox called as use withholding tax. Enable withholding tax. Now look at the field, withholding tax group. But at the time of creation, the name was withholding tax classification. Here they are giving as a group. That means we have to understand both are same. You can call as a classification or call as a group. Now whatever the group we created, select here. We created as a ERP tree withholding tax group. So if you don't enable the checkbox here, site level you cannot give this information. The system will take from site. If you want to set at site level, first under profile you have to enable the checkbox. Okay, you may not select the group, but you should enable so that it will allow you to set at site level. Save it. Now go to sites. click on edit. Here, see, since we have one site, I'm directly clicking on edit. If you have multiple sites, select specific site and click on edit. Now, go to site assignments. And here, use withholding tax checkbox we can enable. Reason, profile level we enable. If you don't enable at profile level here, you cannot enable. Here it will be disabled mode. Enable and select withholding tax group name. Here is our group, select. So we are telling to the system for this supplier site, simply you can say supplier, but we set at site level. For this supplier site, withholding tax is applicable. For this supplier site, withholding tax is applicable. It means for this supplier, withholding tax is applicable. So within this group, what are the tax codes are available, accordingly system will calculate the tax. So when you create invoice with this supplier site, the moment you click on validate, the validation process will check tax applicability also. We discussed what validation can check. So say save and close. If you have multiple suppliers, for other suppliers, if withholding tax is applicable, same step you have to repeat. Yeah. So now we are ready with the setups. Let's create invoice with the Amex Corporation. So for Amex Corporation, withholding tax is applicable. Yes, we enable the checkbox and we assign withholding tax group. The moment you submit the invoice for validation, system will calculate the tax. Okay. So let's create invoice with Amex Corporation, who is our standard supplier. Now take case as the Amex Corporation is not a registered entity for testing purpose. Create invoice. Select the same supplier for which supplier withholding tax is applicable. Enter invoice number. So I'm entering invoice amount as a 1 lakh. Enter line amount. Now submit invoice for validation. Okay, the validation process will trigger the tax calculation. Click on validate. Invoice is validated. Now scroll little down. You can see withholding tax is calculated. We given 15%. So invoice amount is 1 lakh, 15%, 15,000. Now we have to pay only 85,000. See here, due amount is 85. So we are deducting 15% tax from this, and we are paying to the tax authority that 15%. Remaining 85,000 will pay to the standard supplier. So when you pay, doesn't matter. Okay, anytime just first you may pay to tax authority, first you may pay to standard supplier, doesn't matter. That is based on the payment terms. So the moment you see here, the tax is calculated and it's separated, you can go and see separate invoice with this withholding tax amount. Okay, we can go and see separate invoice. Here we have a section called as withholding tax. If you want to see the detailed information, you can come here. Here we are able to see, here is a taxes separate section. Expand it. Go to withholding taxes. And here clearly you can see what tax code system is using. Within that code, what is the rate? Calculation point is invoice. It is belongs to our tax regime and all the details. Okay. Now we can go and find withholding tax invoice. Whenever you see the tax amount, you can assume system created withholding tax invoice also. If you want to pay, you can pay for this 85. See, if I try to process the payment, it will take 85 only. You cannot pay more than 85 because 15,000 deducted from this invoice, it holded the same amount already system created withholding tax invoice also. So that is the reason if you want to pay, you can pay only 85. We'll go and review the invoice, whatever system created. So here it is not showing directly. Go to manage invoices. You search with tax authority name. Our tax authority name is ER Petri US Withholding Tax Authority. Search. So here is the invoice. Open this invoice, we can review the detailed information. Just click on invoice number. Go to actions, click on edit. Now you can see supplier name as ER Petri US Withholding Tax Authority, the same site, and the type of invoice is withholding tax. Type of invoice is withholding tax, and within the description of this withholding tax invoice, you can see this withholding tax invoice created against which supplier and what is the supplier invoice number. Against which standard supplier this withholding tax invoice is created. Again, it is pointing against which invoice this withholding tax is created, against which standard invoice this withholding tax invoice is created. You can see here. Yes, if you want to change the withholding tax number, you can change. We don't get reality invoice from the government. That is the reason any number is okay. So that's how it is. If you go to distributions, you can just see the account. Okay, automatic withholding tax. Automatic withholding tax. Same account it is taking. If you look at header level, your system is taking this liability account. Okay. So the distribution level, yes, you can take as that is also liability account, or you can take as a tax amount. So accordingly, system will trigger the accounting. Distribution level account, it will debit, and liability account is credit for invoice. That means withholding tax account debit and liability account is credit. You create accounting, that's how system will create. Validate it. So this amount we will pay to tax authority. Pay in full. So 15,000 we are going to pay. If you want to pay, you can pay. There is no kind of sequence here. First we have to pay to standard supplier, or first we have to pay to tax authority. There is no rule. So as per terms, we have to pay. As per payment terms, you can pay. There is no sequence we have to follow. First, we have to pay to standard supplier, then only we can pay to tax authority. No, there is no rule. So we paid. So whenever you want to pay, you can pay to your standard supplier. So that's how it is. What is the concept of withholding tax? Concept of withholding tax. No. So we are done with withholding tax. Fine. Now let's talk about supplier merge. We discussed various scenarios. If one company is acquiring another company, both companies are our suppliers, we may merge. Or else if there is any duplication, we can merge. Or else one site you may merge with another site. We discussed all the possible merge cases. Now we'll see in the system. Okay. So just we discussed the reason you should be able to recall when we are working on that concept. That is the reason we discussed in advance. Again, now we should not expect. Let's try to understand what does it mean by supplier merge. We discussed detail level. Just we are going to see in the system how the merge concept will work. So to test supplier merge, what we do is we'll create one more supplier. Okay, let's create one more supplier so that we can merge one supplier with another supplier. So already we have one supplier called as Amex Corporation. Now we'll just create supplier called as Amex IMC. We'll merge corporation with IMC, Amex Inc. Okay, IMC, or you can call it as Inc. Amex Inc. Say this is the actual real name, how it should be, but somehow we created supplier name as a corporation. So later we identified the name should be IMC only. So we have many invoices with the corporation. We are going to merge corporation with IMC so that all invoices will be updated with the new supplier name. So let's create Amex IMC so that we can merge Amex Corporation with Amex Inc. So create one more supplier. Go to suppliers task. Go to task pan. Say create supplier. Supplier name is Amex Inc. So we no need to discuss again and again, same story. Okay, I'll go on mute and I'll create this supplier. Okay, we created one more supplier as this how we created a Amex Corporation. So save and close. Done. Now we are in the supplier related dashboard, right? How we navigated to this page by clicking on suppliers. From here we created supplier. So from this page, if you click on task pan, you see one task called as merge suppliers. See one task called as merge suppliers. Click on merge suppliers. Now here you see merge suppliers. Under that request, you can submit a request to merge one supplier with another supplier or one site with another site within the same supplier. Now click on plus icon. Say I want to merge corporation with Inc. So from supplier is corporation, select site, and to supplier is Inc. Now what system will do is it will inactivate this supplier, this site. If you merge this supplier with this supplier, if the supplier has only one site, this site, then this site it will inactivate, then the supplier no longer available. If the supplier has multiple sites, only it will inactivate this site. Remaining sites will be active and you can record the transactions with the supplier. If the supplier has only one site, if you merge, the site will be inactivated. If site is inactivated, you cannot access that supplier if the supplier has only one site. So that's how it is. Now I can specify the transfer options. So if I select unpaid invoices, so with this supplier and site, whatever unpaid invoices we have, those invoices system will update with this supplier's name under this site. Only unpaid invoices. If I select all invoices with this supplier and site, whatever the invoices you have, paid or unpaid invoices, those all will be updated against this supplier name under site. You may select purchase orders. So with this supplier and site, whatever the purchase orders are available, against those all purchase orders, system will update this supplier and this site once merge is performed. Or else you can select purchase orders and only unpaid invoices. Only purchase orders and unpaid invoices only, this supplier name and site will be updated, or else you can select purchase orders and all invoices, paid and unpaid invoices for all the invoices and purchase orders. So wherever you see this supplier name and site name there, this supplier and this site name will get updated. So my requirement is I don't want to update any names, just I want to close this supplier site. That is my requirement. That means this site will be inactivated for existing invoices and purchase orders. The supplier name only remain as this. It is not going to update this name. So from now I cannot create any invoices with this supplier site, but already whatever the invoices we have with this supplier name and site, those we can pay. Those we can pay. We can pay. Invoices would be available. You can process the payment, but new invoices you cannot create with this site. If I select none, means I'm not transferring any invoices and purchase orders information from this name to this name. Okay, that's how it is. So let's select, anyway, we don't have purchase orders. Select all invoices or only unpaid invoices. Let's select all invoices. So in this environment, we have less invoices with our supplier name. This is a new environment. Till last session, we used a different instance that got refreshed. And again, I complete all the setups in this environment with the same name. So very few invoices we have. What are the invoices we have with this supplier name and with this site, with this combination? For all those invoices, system will update this name and this site. Now, here is one checkbox called as copy site. When you say copy site, supplier name it will update. This supplier name, wherever we have Amex Corporation, system will replace with this name. But you don't want to replace the site. You want to use the same site with this supplier name. In that case, you can say copy site. So here you don't want to use this supplier site. So same site, system has to copy to this supplier also just to update the invoices. It is not going to create this site for this supplier. So wherever all the invoices we have with this supplier and with this site, our requirement is only system has to update the supplier name. Site name you want to keep as these for those existing invoices. So in that case, this it will replace with this, site remain as this. If you want to replace the site also, wherever you have this site, which site system has to update, select. Of course, in our case, both we create as the dollars, but it could be dollars, it could be some other like Austin, just you can update it. So that's how you can specify and you can submit. So when you practice in some instances, this supplier merge doesn't work. In that case, you don't need to disappoint. We are going to play with the different instances. So in one instance, it is not working. You try in other instance and you can experience it. Okay, in some instances, in these practice instances, in some instances, this function doesn't work. Whenever you submit, it will trigger the merge job. Sometimes the job ends with error with some technical reasons. So in that case, no need to worry. When you are dealing with other instance, you can do this testing. That's how it is. Now click on submit and read this message. Very important. This action is irreversible and may result in updating to the transaction. Do you want to continue? Yes. Already we selected transfer option. All invoices. It will update to the transactions. So what the message is, once you perform this merge, it cannot be reversed. You cannot undo this merge. Okay, make sure the criteria from and to supplier selection and the sites, whether you want to copy site or you want to just replace one site with another site, and transfer options, whether you want to apply this changes to specific only unpaid invoice or all invoices and purchase orders or only purchase orders. You just double check and take the decision, then only you submit. That is a message from the system. Yeah, it's irreversible, means you cannot undo once you complete. Say yes, we are okay with this. Say okay. And here we have a processes section. Click on refresh. Now you can see the job what system is running. Merge supplier job system triggered. Refresh. So once you see the status as a succeeded, then we can go and review the data. Now the status is succeeded. So go to manage invoices. Okay, go to manage invoices. Here, recent invoices 5. You just click on it. Now you see the invoices 4 invoices are our standard invoices. For 4 invoices, system updated name as a Amex INC. Tax authority, it remains same. We are not merging anything. It replaced means merged. Merged. Okay, it's merged. And site also, of course, name is same, but we just merged site also. And if I'm going to create invoice, I cannot find Amex Corporation. Type Amex is taking Amex INC Inc. There is no corporation. Why? Let's go to our supplier record. Search with Amex. See, Amex Corporation supplier itself inactivated with this date. Okay, supplier is inactivated with the today's date. Why supplier is inactivated? Since supplier has only one site. If this supplier has two sites, if you are merging supplier with another supplier, only one site, this supplier will still active. Only one site that we merged, then what is the use of this supplier? That is reason system is inactivating. And if you go to this supplier record, you can see what happened to the site. No site. System removed site also. Since we perform the merge, system is removing the site and inactivating the supplier. Supplier status is inactive. Okay. So that's how it is. Now, this supplier would be available in payment workbench if you want to process the payments. Supplier is inactivated not to create invoices. If you are going to create invoices, say you completed supplier merge with the processing option as a none. That means supplier will be inactivated and invoice will be the same supplier name. Even whatever the processing option you selected, the supplier will remain available to process the payments if any pending invoices are available with the same supplier. You type Amex here. Yeah, Amex Corporation also showing it is not available to create invoices, but already invoices are available with the same supplier name. That invoices you are not updating with the new supplier name. In that case, you should be able to pay. That is the reason supplier name will be available here if you want to pay. Anyway, now no invoices with Amex Corporation. All we updated with Amex INC. So that's all about supplier merge concept. If you want to merge sites, yes, you can merge the sites also. Within the same supplier, if you have multiple sites, you can merge. Now we don't have multiple sites, but let's look into that. Go to merge suppliers, click on plus icon. So from supplier is Amex INC. To supplier also Amex INC. You take a simple example. This supplier has a two sites, site 1 and site 2. So the supplier is stopping the services in site 1. They are going to continue with only site 2. In that case, site 1 you have to merge with the site 2. Supplier name same. Here you select site 1. Here you select site 2. That means 1 you are going to merge with the 2. No more 1 you will find once you perform the merge. Only the site 1 will be inactivated and site 2 will remain as it is, and supplier also will be active only. So here we have seen only one site, that is the reason entire supplier also inactivated. So that's all about supplier merge to understand this is irreversible activity. Once you perform, you cannot undo this. So that's all about supplier merge concept. Now, let's pick another item. Okay. So here we discussed these pay group. Supplier refund. Okay. Here, just will add one more concept. So pay alone. Okay, we will discuss. Okay, pay alone. So what does it mean by pay alone? By default, with a single document, means with a single check, you can pay to multiple invoices. Sometimes your supplier may inform each invoice you pay using the separate check. If you receive 10 invoices from the supplier, you have to issue 10 checks. That could be your supplier requirement. Supplier is asking you pay for each invoice separately. In that case, we have to create the rule in the system. You cannot remember all the time. That rule you have to enforce in the system. If you set for this supplier, we have to pay every time separate invoice for each invoice. If you can set rule in the system, then when users are going to create the payments, everybody will follow. Or else if you give instruction to the business users, they may forget. So for that, we have a concept called as a pay alone. By default, by using one check, you can process the payment for multiple invoices. You can pay for multiple invoices. With this pay alone, you can enforce the rule for one check. Okay, one invoice, one check, or else for one with by using one document, one check, you can issue the payment to max only one invoice. So this we can enforce in the system. To implement this pay alone, the supplier level you have to set pay alone. Supplier level you have to set pay alone. Now go to our supplier. Now our supplier is Amex Inc. So go to manage suppliers. Amex Inc. Click on edit. Go to sites. Click on edit. Go to payments tab. Under payments tab, go to payment attributes. Site level, go to payments tab. Under payments tab, go to payment attributes. Under payment attributes, go to payment specifications tab. And here is on checkbox, pay each invoice alone through separate document. Okay, site level, go to payments. Under payments, payment attributes. Under payment attributes, payment specifications. There is one checkbox called as pay each invoice alone. Pay each invoice alone. Enable the checkbox. Save and close. Say OK. Done. Now, from now, if you are going to make the payment for this supplier, system will check whether pay alone is like the rule is followed or not. To test it, let's create one invoice so that system will update but that invoice pay alone is applicable. Let's create invoice. Previous invoices you never plan to pay with a separate check. Those can be grouped and paid. The invoices already you created. So those invoice you can combine and you can pay with a single check from now after enabling the checkbox. So whatever the invoices you create, system will mark those invoices are falling under pay alone specifications. So let's create invoice. Click on create icon. Select our supplier, Amex Inc. The invoice number is 5555. The invoice amount is $25,000. Go to lines. $25,000. Validate. Now go to invoice actions, select manage installments. You notice here system is defaulting pay alone from supplier side. That means this invoice you should pay alone with separate check. If you disable, yes, this invoice you can pay along with the other invoice, which is not pay alone. So now system is defaulting the checkbox. So that is the reason you have to pay this invoice alone. So it is defaulting from supplier side. Site level we enable. Now go to payment workbench to process the payment. So create payment. Select our supplier, Amex Inc. Select payment bank account. Select payment process profile. Select payment document. Now click on plus icon. I will see all unpaid invoices. There is one column as pay alone. If you look at these three invoices, the pay alone is applicable only for one invoice. 5555, pay alone is set to yes. You need to pay this invoice with a separate document. You cannot combine other invoice along with this invoice to make the payment. Let's see that. I'm selecting this invoice. Apply. So what is the document number we are going to use? 1,14,000. The document number is 14. I want to select one more invoice. Say apply. Now see the message. You cannot pay this invoice with other invoices because it is pay alone. No, it is not pay alone. Or you already selected a pay alone invoice. Yes, that is true. Already we selected pay alone, that is 5555. Along with that, we are selecting this invoice. This is not allowed. Selected invoice is already pay alone, that should be paid alone. You cannot combine other invoices with pay alone. So that's how you get a message since you instructed system to pay alone each invoice. Now you have to pay this invoice separately. So save and close. So this is all about pay alone concept. Okay. Now let's go back to invoice creation page. If you see here invoice type, okay, invoice type, well, it should enable, it should display withholding tax also. What's wrong with this? So once you complete that withholding, it will display withholding tax type also in this. You can create the manual withholding tax invoice also. It's not reflecting here ideally. Ideally, it should display. Okay. So when you just complete that withholding and all, system should display the invoice type called as withholding. Created withholding tax invoice is one thing, right? And it should display. You try when you are testing. So here it will add withholding tax also, invoice type. Manual withholding tax also you can create by using that. If you look at the setups, we enable that checkbox, manual withholding. That should support. Okay, allow manual withholding. Okay, manually also you can create the withholding tax invoice. It's not reflecting. Just make a note. Okay, it will allow. It will add one more invoice type as withholding tax. Once you implement withholding tax, then it will start displaying the withholding tax. So that's how you'll be able to process. So we tested supplier refund all. Supplier refund, supplier merge, yeah. Supplier refund we didn't test. Merge we updated. Pay alone we tested. Okay. Now, so let's look into invoice holds. So we discussed what does it mean by invoice hold. We can have a like our own hold names, release reasons we can create. We can set up. So let's test it. Say the business requirement is if any invoice is created in the payables without PO, system should place the hold on that invoice. If any invoice is created within the payables without purchase order, without PO, if any invoice is created in the payables, system should place the hold on that invoice. If that is a business requirement, we can achieve that by enabling the checkbox in the invoice options. Go to invoice options. So within the invoice options under invoice entry section, so there is one checkbox called as hold unmatched invoices. Hold unmatched invoices. Enable the checkbox. Say save and close. So from now, if you create an invoice within this business unit, system will expect PO should be there, then only it can be validated. If PO is not there, that cannot be validated. It will place the hold when you just submit to validation, then system will identify there is a rule called as unmatched invoices cannot be processed. Those need to be placed with a hold. So that system will understand, it will place the hold. When system will place, just Then you just submit for validation. Let's create an invoice so that we can understand it. Select supplier, enter invoice number, invoice amount, enter line amount. Now there is no PO information within this invoice, but within this business unit, there is a rule which says place holds all unmatched invoices. Place hold all invoices which are not matched with the PO. Now submit for validation. The validation process can verify what rule is applicable. It verified and it identified. So hold need to be placed. That is the reason it is giving the status as needs revalidation. Now click on the same status. Here you can see there is one system hold, system placed, not V. Click on the same hold. You can see matching is required. As per the invoice options, matching is mandatory. Otherwise, you cannot validate. So invoice is not matched to any PO. That is the reason hold system placed. Yes, we set rule and the system is placing hold. If you want to release, you can release it. Okay, that's okay. I placed that rule. I enable the checkbox to place the hold. Since PO is not there, my requirement is manual. I have to check. So once I review, I may tell to the system, release it. From here, you can just navigate and you can release by saying it's okay. Or else you can go to invoice actions. Here you have a manage holds. From here also you can navigate. Now, just since no PO information, I set a rule, hold need to be placed, system placed. I am not able to validate. The requirement is if no PO, I want to review first, then only that can be allowed. I reviewed, I verified entire invoice information, everything is fine. So then I can say, so yes, let system validate. I'm just giving the release reason as a validated. I validated manual, I validated. I reviewed this invoice, or else I can select the release reason as a reviewed. I reviewed, I verified. Then give that, then system is updating as a validated. I can just review, then I can take the action. So that's how it is. Now I don't have a requirement in entire BU level. For specific suppliers, system has to place the hold. I'll go to invoice options. Invoice options, it is applicable for all the suppliers. Within that BU, any invoice you create, it will place hold if it is not created based on the PO. But my requirement is not for entire BU level, for specific supplier. For specific supplier related invoices, system should place the hold. Then go to suppliers. Go to manage suppliers. Here, search for our supplier Amex Inc. Click on edit. Just go to site, click on edit. Go to invoicing tab. Scroll little down. Here you have payment hold controls. If I set hold all invoices, yes, with this supplier, okay, with this supplier site, any invoice is created, system will place the hold. And what reason system should display to the user? Additional review is required by manager. So that's how you can just say hold all invoices and specify the reason. Or else you can set hold unmatched invoice only. Set to yes. Okay, this is not valid now. I'll set hold on all invoices. No, no, should not hold. Which invoices it should hold? Invoices which are unmatched. That means within this entire BU, only for this supplier, system will place the hold if any invoice is created against this supplier without PO. That's how it is. So other field, hold unvalidated invoices. Okay, hold unvalidated. So invoices, okay, invoices like we have like the functionality like where invoices will come, and from some sources invoices will come with validated status. Some invoices you may get from unvalidated status. Based on that, this will work. Okay, if you say like hold unvalidated invoices, if any invoice are coming as unvalidated into payables application, it will place the hold. So that means supplier level also you can set the holds accordingly system will behave. Okay. Just make a note at this point. Again, this setting and testing not required. You can understand this point. Even you can set all related controls at supplier site level also. So apart from that, when we create invoice and when we submit that invoice for validation, if anything wrong with that invoice, header line distribution amount is not matching, it will place the hold. Already we have seen. Or else you can go and place the hold for any one of the invoice. So go to invoice workbench. Here we have invoices. Say here we have invoice with $25,000. This invoice is already paid. Now I'll pick this invoice, 5,000 invoice, not paid. I'm opening this invoice. I'm working for payables department as an accountant. Say I'm working in the payables department as an accountant. So I got instruction from my manager stating, don't make the payment for invoice number 6666. We have some issue with that supplier, or we have issue with this invoice. Then what I can do is I can go to invoice actions and go to manage holds, click on plus icon. I'll just give the some reason and I'll place the hold. Okay, so to select some reason. These are all reasons we can create as per the business requirement. All the reasons we can create. These are few Oracle providing as a predefined. These all are predefined reasons why you may place the hold on the invoice. Okay, so just select any one of the, say because this is a duplicate invoice. So save and close. Now see invoice status is needs revalidation. So we spoke to the supplier and we identified this is not a duplicate invoice. Then we can release it. So manually we place the hold. That is the reason system is updating. Hold is manual hold. You can click on the same hold. You can just update. Okay, just we spoke to supplier and we sorted out. Okay, so that's how you can specify and you can just give any update. Anything you can select as a release. We are releasing with some reason. Now validate it. This is how you can place the hold or you can release the hold through manual process. If anything wrong with that invoice, system can place and system can release. Certain system holds also we can release. We have seen supplier, unpaid, invoice options level, we enabled on checkbox, place hold on unmatched invoices. System placed, still we were able to release it. But certain holds we cannot release what system is placing. If amount variance and such kind of holds we cannot release. Even we can create the whole names and release reasons also. We have a separate task you can create based on the business need. Search for invoice holds. Here is the task. Manage invoice holds and releases. So from here, whatever the holds names we have, that we were able to see when we are placing the manual hold. We can create. I'm selecting hold type as invoice hold reason. Issue with supplier. Also issue with that invoice. That may be amount, quantity you can address if you want to do that. So when you place this hold, whether accounting is allowed or not, manually this hold can be released or not, you can set yes, it's allowed. Accounting is allowed, even you place this hold. Okay, allow manual release. Yes, manually we can release. So save and close. Now I'll create one more hold or release name. Okay, say invoice release reason. You can say invoice issue resolved. Just say issue resolved. So save and close. Now if you go to invoice, there's two definitions. Okay, the two definitions like hold reason, release reasons will be available here. I'll open this invoice. Go to invoice actions, manage holds. So I can place the hold with the same hold name or reason, whatever I created. Issue with invoice. So say one close. Now status is needs revalidation. Just trying to validate this invoice. Since hold is placed, it cannot be validated. You can click on this needs revalidation or go to manage holds. You can release it. Release reason also we created. Issue resolved. That's how you can, client will ask you to create few very clear reasons under reasons to place, reasons to release. Now it is validated. So that's how it is. So that we call as invoice holds and release reasons. Hold reasons and release reasons. So few reasons Oracle is providing why we place the holds, why we release. As per business requirement, we can create the required hold reasons and release reasons. Okay. So that's all about invoice holds concept. We are done with this. So we are done for today. If you have any questions, you can just unmute and ask. Now you will be able to unmute. Any questions from anyone, please?
Tax authority, we created a system, created invoice with the tax authority automatically. So by referring to the standard invoice, how we'll get to know what is the tax authority created for that?
See, by referring that, you cannot see that. By referring that, you cannot see that. What you can do is, so within that, what tax code is there, tax code is mapped with what, that's how you can trace out. If so, you can check if any additional field like show more we have, right? You check in the various level if anywhere it is Oracle is displaying. In the back end, it will get stored.
Okay,
Oracle is just displaying here and there that additional field. You can refer in that way. Otherwise, only from back end you can see.
okay,
And if you want to see from front end also, you have to do some manual work. What is the code? You have to go to code. The code is mapped at what authority, right? We did the mapping between the code and
yes,
authority.
yeah,
That you can check and you can understand.
okay.
Any questions from anyone?
Sir, is there any way to, the US taxation, particularly for vendors, is to import or export through the FBDI template or ADFBDI templates?
Which you want to import?
No, the export, I am talking about export. The export, the WHT rates into the payable module.
You see, certain kind of records kind of information you can export. Okay, records kind of information you can export into spreadsheet. If you have a such kind of requirement, it's very simple. Going and writing SQL query in the BI environment, whatever the data you need, you can export. Here, when you talk about from front end, where really required for such kind of functions, Oracle is giving the export option. The simple
Okay.
task is write a simple SQL query in the BA environment. We'll see, just
Okay.
we'll have one session just where you can write SQL queries, right? There you can just understand anything you want to export, how you can.
And secondly, when we are distributing the dividend for subsidiary companies or for owners, normally we used to withhold the tax WHT and then we distribute
See, these
dividend.
distributions and all you will do through manual entries generally. Say you have a corporate tax, etc., etc. We don't have solutions for those.
Okay.
Yeah, these are not regular business activities, right? So you pass mostly manual entries,
Okay.
then you will just knock off based on the actions what you are doing.
So that we do from general ledger module.
Yes, the
Thank you.
dividend related and corporate tax, etc. You do, like we don't have solution for corporate tax and some other small activities which we do rarely. So those you can pass as a manual entries.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So any other questions, please? So no questions. So that's all for today. So we'll catch up tomorrow and we'll just proceed with supply refund, rest what we have in the sequence.